why does distance still matter?
Yeah, no, it's a great observation. When I did the first work, this was my PhD thesis, dissertation, and based upon that survey, research of registration, it was quite clear that, as you said, the longer or the further an NGO was from Beijing, the less likely an organization would be registered. So the emperor is far and the mountains are high. And we wanted to, but this is a smaller scale, much smaller scale survey, right? The more recent research is based upon 860,000 registrations, 860,000 organizations. So it is the full, complete historical record of NGO registration in China. And it was interesting because this is a co-authored work, and I remember having a conversation with the co-author, Blake Miller, and I told Blake, I said, we definitely need to test this because I found it 15 years ago. So I want to know if it still holds up. And Blake said, there's no way it holds up because of what you said.
Okay.
They said, that's dead and gone, right? It's far more complicated. So here's what's interesting. Yeah, we did find support for distance mattering. Not mattering as much, right? So that significance has gone down. And what matters even more is local variation. The problem, I think, or maybe, why does distance matter? I mean, in part because typically, though not always, the further from Beijing, the less developed, a region is. That's far more powerful. When we actually tested the level of development, that was a much stronger relationship that told us that essentially the more developed a region, the more likely registration was actually really in keeping with what the center wanted, which was tended to be kind of a firmer hand, right? It was the further from Beijing in part, but really the less developed, the more an administrative region essentially needed the help of NGOs, the more likely it was to be to offer more slack, right? That gets back to that metaphor, right?
Yeah.
It's because it's not simply about trust. It's trust that's mediated by perceived benefit and perceived risk.
Right. So in effect, distance is really just a proxy for development.
For development, I think so. Yeah.
That's
and I mean, the one thing I should add here is that, like, the context of real interests that are particularly far from Beijing, Tibet and Xinjiang, and I say of interest because these are politically sensitive areas, just had not surprisingly, NGOs aren't really operating in these places, right? And insofar as they are, they're obviously going to be registered. But yeah.